Are you still boosting posts on Instagram and Facebook in order to reach more people with paid advertising? Well, you are in for a treat because we're about to tell you exactly why you should not be doing that, because I have a very special guest, a friend of mine, Danisha White, in this interview where she's going to share more about her story and different strategies and tactics that she is implementing for her clients, which she's working with healthcare providers, with wellness and medical experts. So she is developing social media content strategies for them, and she's also running paid advertising for health and wellness professionals. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Hello, Danisha. I'm so excited to have you on here today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us more about what you're doing and how you got started?
Hey, I'm excited to be here as well. I am the lead digital marketing strategist of my own business, Strategic Truth Solutions, and we focus on healthcare professionals and wellness brands. So we help them execute proven digital marketing strategies using social media. How I got started? Well, I have been in the social media and content creation world for a long time-ish. Right out of college, I took a job doing social media marketing for a university in 2017. And so that is where I got my start. And I've just grown to do marketing in the higher education world, and then ventured into working with personal brands and businesses as well. So that's pretty much how I got started. I decided to go out on my own in 2020, right kind of when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. And I had a full-time job at the moment. And about 12 days after, I really started my business, I was laid off due to COVID-19. So I really was pushed into entrepreneurship at that time. But that's how I got my start.
That is insane. Oh my gosh. But it totally worked out, didn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was all in God's planning, in my opinion, that I was just like getting my foundation laid out, and then it was like, okay, you're good enough. You don't need this job anymore. I'm like, okay, I definitely had to learn a lot in that time, to work with clients and build my own business and things. But there's so many great resources online. I'm just thankful that I was able to have that time to really dive into it. And I'm still a new business. I'm still in my second year, so it just hasn't been long for me. And, it worked out exactly how it was supposed to.
Yeah, for sure. Always in God's timing. So I'm curious because I know a lot of people that have gotten laid off, unfortunately, during the pandemic, in 2020 and even in 2021. And, one of the biggest shifts I know a lot of people have experienced, like obviously not everybody would have been able to jump into social media and get started. You've already had some of that experience. How did you go from, being busy with your 9 to 5 and then also doing some like on the side stuff with clients, which I'm assuming you were doing?
Mhm.
Correct me if is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then now all of a sudden you have all of that time. And I know like from my experience as well, a lot of the times it's like, man, I have all these hours in the day. I don't have a full-time job, but it's like, I feel like I need one so I stay more productive, so I have less time. So I'm like more, like contained, I guess, within the set of hours. So how did you shift from having, very little time to having all the time in the world?
I would say that I'm someone who always has a lot on their plate. Anybody who knows me is like, I'm always working. I've always got a job, and not just one job. I've got several jobs. So actually, even though I was laid off from my full-time position, I still had some part-time jobs lined up that I was working. And so there was a little structure in that where like I had to map out, okay, these are my set, working hours for like this business and this business. And then this is my time to work on my company. So it wasn't like all the time in the world, but there was a time where it was like, okay, these days I have nothing. Like you said, I have all this time to work on my business. What do I do? And so really I just found some people online who were already talking about, how to structure yourself as an entrepreneur. I had other people who had took the leap into entrepreneurship before me. And so I did have that to kind of guide me as well a little bit. And that's really how I just navigated it. I actually set up an office in my kitchen at the time, one of my old apartments. I just made my dining room table my office, and I was like, this is where you come, and this is where you do work, and I just built that structure for myself. So it really was it was a balance and it was a challenge, but it still had a little more structure to it. And I'm just a structured type person. So like, even if I had all this open opportunity, I'd probably be like, okay, how do I run this, company like it is exactly a company? Because that's what I wanted from the start, was like an official side hustle business that wasn't just like posting on Facebook, like, hey, I can do this. Like, anyone want to help? And I'm just like, how can I make it more like, get my LLC, make sure I can file my taxes. So I created that structure for myself because I knew that it was going to be something bigger.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. I think having a structure, even if you are very disorganized, there are some people that I know, they're like, old friends, and they're like, oh, I'm so like the type of person go with the flow. But at the end of the day, seeing even them transition from being in flow and then having, okay, so I do have some sort of routine that I follow and I do have that structure. So, and somebody said, I can't remember what book that was. I believe it was Atomic Habits or something else that said, in order for you to be more creative, you have to have that structure, because creativity flows and like grows in the structure. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit into social media, something that we both do. And, we both absolutely love content marketing, and you're also more into paid advertising, which I'm excited to touch base here in just a little bit. So when you're working with healthcare providers and wellness brands, what are some of the things that they usually need help with, and you see the big mistakes they're making? I know it's a very busy profession. So when you come in, what are some of the things that are very common, and with most clients, it's like, okay, we have to get this straightened out?
Mm-hmm. I would say the number one thing with working with this specific industry is they don't have a lot of time. Like, when I'm working with like nurses and doctors, their schedules are packed. They do not have time for, a lot of one-off calls, or, to sit there and do it all themselves, like writing that post and getting it just right. And so the thing that I noticed before we come in and work with them is that they're just kind of posting whenever, maybe has kind of like no structure to it. Maybe it's not as easy to read for their audience. Maybe it like their copy is not clean, or they've got a lot to say because they're so knowledgeable about what they do that they just put it all out there. And one of the things that I think our company comes in and does well for them is we kind of break down their content into as much as it possibly can. You take one piece of content and you stretch that thing to like multiple places, like platforms, or maybe this can be 3 posts instead of 1, or maybe we break this up into like a carousel so that people can digest the content a little easier. And so I think that's one of the things that I'm really skilled at, is like, okay, I want this to be as digestible for the average reader as possible. And someone with so much knowledge in their brain, they just think like, okay, I'm just going to say this and, put it out there in the world and it's going to reach people. It is. But the one thing that you really want to do is make it easy for people to really understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think content repurposing is really a game changer, and I keep hearing a lot of people talk about it. I remember people talked about it way back, but I'm like, it's like with so many platforms that we have, and especially with TikTok and Instagram Reels and Pinterest and YouTube, there are so many different ways how you can take one piece of content and recreate it in multiple different ways, and no one's even going to notice. So do you repurpose your content a lot for yourself as well, for your company?
I really do. I'm working on being a lot more skilled at that for myself, but sometimes you really want to focus on one platform and you think, oh, all my followers, they've seen this, but that's not true. You post that thing and, only maybe half or a third of your audience has seen it. And so, yeah, you really want to break it down and post it maybe a different way. Like you said, that repurposing doesn't mean like copy and paste that same thing out of the same way again. And then your feed just looks like a repeat, like a bot or something, but you just have to restructure it and reframe it. And so I do repurpose for myself and for my clients. And I noticed that you do the same thing as well, but you always make it like fresh and different for your audience. And so it's still fun to see you. You know, no one cares that like they saw you in the same outfit in a reel, you know, like 6 times. It's a different reel now. Like it's a different post now. Read the caption. Like it's gonna be different. So I think you do a really good job at that. And I'm sure your clients like see that too.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I started doing that a lot more because I remember like years ago, maybe like in 2018, 19, and I was like, man, like, and every now and then we all have those content blocks as far as like, man, what do I even talk about? Because it's like I feel like I've already talked about everything under the sun. What else can I talk about? But then, you know, I always give this example. You know, last month you may have had 1,000 followers, and this month you have 1,100. So you have 100 extra people that have not seen it. Not to mention the way the algorithms work. Only like what 10% of people, if that, see your content in the first place.
Yeah, Instagram algorithm specifically is like, you know, gonna push out as much of what you post to the people who typically engage with you. So if you have an audience of 1,000, like you said, maybe only 100 people actually saw it. And that is something that a lot of creators, I think, aren't aware of. I think we're becoming more aware of that as we do the research as creators, and also as Instagram just is more transparent about like what's going on the back end. Like if you're not following Mazier on Instagram, you're doing yourself a serious disservice, because he will tell you like week to week, maybe, you know, even a couple times a week, like, hey, this is what Instagram is changing. Hey, this is what we're prioritizing. And if you are tapped into that as a creator, it's going to help you.
Yeah, and I've also noticed today, like every single time there's a new update in the Instagram platform. So like subscriptions are a thing right now. Every single time there's a major update like that, the algorithm just tanks. And I see like so many creators talk. I'm like, okay, so it's not just my content, it's not just my clients' content. So it's across the board. So it's like you kind of have to plan for that. And because a lot of and I love the fact that Instagram also taken away you know, the likes. So you don't have to show how many likes there are on a post, because so many creators that I've seen in the past, they would be so obsessed over the engagement and the comments and the likes. It's like, man, just chill. Like there have been some really like scary stories. Like it's just likes. It's not, you know, anything to be so stressed out about. So
right. And there's so many ways that you can just show your content on Instagram, to where it's like, even if the algorithm's tanking, you know, you can take that as an opportunity, like I said, to repurpose or to do something completely different, or to stay focused on your strategy. Like it's really hard to see everyone else, you know, doing different things, and people get caught up and they've got shiny object syndrome, you know, and I have fallen victim to it before as well. Like, oh man, everyone's doing this. Like, oh, I guess I got to do that in my business. But what I learned is, in this short period of time, like you just got to stay true to what works for you, and you cannot pay attention to like what everyone else is doing, unless you realize after a long trial period of like, you know, 90 days, 100 days or so, and you're like, man, that really didn't work out for me. Maybe I should do something else. But other than that, you know, Instagram is going to do what it's going to do. They are a business. They are trying to change so many different things, but it's really up to you and your audience, you know, what moves forward and what gets seen the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, one thing that I keep noticing, and I'm always curious to ask other creators as well, you know, a lot of the times people say, oh, okay, engagement is so important. It's about your visibility. And I'm like, yeah, it is kind of important. It's not the most important metric in the business. Have you also found that a lot of the times you will sign clients that never engage on your stuff? They just watch your story silently. And it's like, just like those lurkers and stalkers. Have you found that the same?
I haven't found that to be true for myself just yet, but I know exactly what you're talking about when you have someone who's just lurking, you know, because I've been on the other side of that as a creator, though, you know, someone who works with brands. One of my other experience areas is higher education. And so when we're looking to see, you know, maybe what kind of things we want to try in that world, you know, it's part of the research phase to just lurk, like look at other people's content, watch their stories. You know, you might not, you know, ever comment. You could be following this page for a while and you might not ever comment on their post or like their post, but to them, they shouldn't take that as like a negative thing. You know, there's a reason that the New York Times has like a lot of followers. People are just paying attention to them.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that you mentioned one thing that if there are, trends or, anything that's everybody's doing, everybody's creating, a certain type of content, and especially with Reels and TikToks, everybody's jumping on trends. But I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. I'm like, if we all keep jumping on trends, we eventually blend in and we become just like everybody else. So would you say, like, for yourself and for your clients, do you jump on trends, or do you also create something that is more unique to you and to a particular brand you're working with?
I would definitely say we try to keep it unique. We try to keep it authentic as possible. One of the great things about the clients that I work with is they know who they are. And that's something that I look for when I'm seeking clients, people who already are established in like what they like to do, what they know works. Well, they might not know what works for them all the time, but they at least have something to go off of, like, hey, I'm a healthcare provider. And one of my big things that always hit is like, my workout videos, that might not have anything to do with like my 9 to 5 job, but like I work out and people like to see me work out. And I'm like, cool, let's use that. Like, let's use that to just kind of set the standard for everyone else. If everyone else is like dancing around, following the points and TikToks, and you never do that, that's okay, because you work out and people also like to watch other people work out, So it really depends on what works for you, I think. And you can't, like I said, rush to that like shiny object syndrome of like, oh man, I gotta go do this. Like, if I have people who were always wanting to like follow the trends, I'd probably really question, working with them, because that's just, I don't like that. That's just me. And it doesn't mean that if you follow the trends, some people might come back on the social media manager like us and be like, man, I did that trend, like, and it didn't work. Like, what's wrong with my content? I'm like, maybe people were tired of watching other people point at the screen. Like, I don't know. It just, maybe it wasn't authentic to your brand. You never know. Like, but they like to blame us,
For sure, for sure. Yeah, like I remember when Instagram first became a thing, and like and TikTok was first more about dancing. And I remember I was like, I really feel like TikTok is behind the pandemic because they stole all the traffic and everybody was just on it. Everybody was home, especially March, April, and May of 2020. It was wild. And it was like I was also very skeptical of the platform because of so many different speculations and the app like potentially having a lot of privacy issues. But then I've seen how, obviously it shifted and everybody just pretty much copied TikTok and everybody's trying to capitalize on the short form content. So what's your experience with, because I'm very much a big proponent of the long form content as well. I always feel like we just can't deliver as much value in the short form content, so we can't just create that. So what's your take on that?
I agree. One reason I agree with you is because I come from a journalism background. So I'm used to writing like a lot of words. Like, I'm totally fine with writing a lot of words. And so when you have so much to say, like I said, there's a way to break that down, to make it digestible for Instagram. But honestly, some platforms like Facebook, they don't mind on Facebook reading an entire article. They don't mind reading your blog. They don't mind reading your like long post alert that you put up and it's got like 1,000 words in it. People will read that. So I think long form content still has a place. It still has a place online. It still has a place in our businesses. I'm a fan of breaking it down though, for other people to just get what they're going to get, because some people don't read. So that's still a thing. That's very true. They don't read. They might not finish your whole blog. They might not finish your carousel if you've got more than 3 slides in it. Like, if it's too many words, they're like, okay, I think I get it. And they might miss that main point, because they didn't read it all. So like you said, repurposing really helps that, or just breaking it down a different way another time. And it's like, hey, maybe they saw that tip about like foods that they should eat, and they thought, oh, I eat bananas, that's fine. But they didn't read the point about like, if you eat too many bananas, like you're going to have a problem. So then you just kind of repost that and let them see it. So, and I love how creators like you and some others that I know we follow alike that will break down their content and then point toward their long form. Like, hey, go read the blog for everything else that you need to know about this, and you can do that, all day long, because like you said, you're going to lose people in that funnel who might not make it to the blog. But if they see it so many times, like the statistic used to be 7 points. People need to see it 7 times for them to actually take action. I don't know if that's gone to more now. I would assume it takes people more touch points now, just because our attention spans are so much shorter. But I think that the more you point towards your long form content, the people who really value that are going to go look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we also get to cater to different personalities because, we may target one kind of customer, like a health and wellness expert or a coach, but everybody has different learning styles. And I feel like so many people, at least the ones that I'm connected with, like we all have either diagnosed or undiagnosed ADHD. So we're not going to sit here and read the whole, 1800 word article. So I feel like even tailoring the content. Okay, so if you want to watch a YouTube video, there's YouTube. If you want to consume it in an audio format, here's a podcast. Here's like a tweet if you like the threads. And then, taking those threads, putting them as a carousel for those who are on Instagram. So, we get to kind of cater. And especially I feel like every single time I see, a friend of mine the other day did a survey whether people read sales pages, and about 95% of people said, no, I just get to the pricing and I kind of see like what it is all about. Because usually people already know like, hey, like I've already kind of made a purchasing decision if I follow you, if I'm on your email list. So just tell me how much it is and what I'm going to get and like how many people you've helped. So
that's true.
But it's also interesting, I did a few polls on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and about 60% of people told me that they read blogs. So I'm like, that's surprising. I'm like, what kind of links?
That's really good. And you make a good point about learning styles, because that is a thing. But one of my main concerns when we start to tailor our content to like all the different learning styles is honestly the value of the creator. So if you create, for your clients, you've given them the reels for the people who are watching reels, you've given them the tweets for the people who are on Twitter, you're giving them the Facebook post and the Instagram post, not to mention if you venture into like the paid ad version of it too, like you have given them 5 things, that they can use to promote like their business, their service, whatever. And there's value in that. Like just because it was maybe one piece of content that you transformed into all of that, you did a lot of work. And a lot of people don't like to see as creators, like the fact that we did all that work means we need to be compensated like for all that work.
Yeah, for sure. So you've mentioned paid advertising. So I know you do a lot of paid ads for your clients. So when you're starting to work with them, I feel like we all kind of use content marketing as the organic base, because paid ads essentially like what it is, it's content which you kind of boost with money. So what's your take on, which one is kind of more important, or which, like the pros and cons of each?
So honestly, they work hand in hand. In my experience, I've been doing paid ads for as long as I've been doing organic content. Like I said, my first job was really in the social media realm, and I did a little mix of both. And through that and through my experience, like through today, I've learned that they work hand in hand. When I do a full-on campaign, which is not in my packages currently, they're separate. But if I do like a campaign where a client wants both, they want to be promoting one service and they want the paid ads and the organic posts to go with them, you have to make sure that your organic is tied to what's being launched on your paid side. Because if you just run your paid ad and say you stop posting for like the time, because you're like, oh, I'm running a paid ad, you're losing traffic because you're not pushing your audience to keep seeing you. They might see your ad 2-3 times, but you need to see if they're watching your feed every day, if they're seeing your videos. Like if you stop posting while you're running a paid ad, I think that's a rookie mistake. Number one. Number two is just the fact that paid ads only go so far. So they're going to, Meta's going to take your money. Let's be honest. I love Meta. I've, like I said, been working with Facebook and Instagram since the beginning, but you can run an ad with, little to nothing, and they're going to do what they're going to do with it. And your campaign's going to end. And then you're just left with the results. But if you keep going with your organic content, you still have leads that you can capture, like even when your ad is off. So I just think they go hand in hand, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And it blows my mind. Like I remember when I first went to the very first event in 2015 in London, and the guy was mostly teaching paid advertising. And I was like 20 years old. I was very fascinated by everything, and I was like, I don't really have the budget, or how the hell do I figure all of that out? And like seeing big proponents of advertising like that. Several years later, I see that same guy who hosted the event. He started publishing content everywhere on YouTube, on, his blog, Instagram. And I'm like, I see you. I see what you're doing. I mean, he's still running ads, but it's like, it's just interesting to see. And I know you've seen the shift as well, like from people just doing the ads and just relying on the ads. And then the end of 2020 happened when I remember when elections were happening in the United States. Like the cost per metric, that is the CPMs, were super high, and it was just insanity. Like how did you manage to adjust with that with your clients, because I'm sure things were going crazy for you?
Yeah, I typically like to pay attention to the data and like the scheduled timeframes of certain things around election. Like I know when the price is going to go up, and you just kind of have to be honest with your clients. Like, hey, it's election season. This is what I recommend. I may recommend for that particular campaign that they, end right before election. If they have something going on with like a holiday launch or things like that, then, if you have the budget, you want to kind of push through, but just know that you'll see a decrease because Facebook is just on high alert for people who are running, campaigns that are trying to promote like a certain candidate or, spread false information. Like things just kind of get a little crazy on the back end. And some people don't want to be in the mix of that. Like, and that's totally your decision. So I just kind of give my expert opinion and, what I've seen in the past and advise them along the way to just really go for whatever they think feels right. I'm not pushy. Like if you want to turn your ads off, that's fine. Let me know when you want to turn them back on, or let me know if we have another campaign we want to go into, and we'll just kind of go from there. But it really depends. But that election time period, or just holidays in general, some people are scared to like run their ads during the holidays. They're like, oh, there's so much traffic. But I'm like, well, do you want to be in the midst of that and capture some, money, or do you want to sit back and just, see what else happens, see what maybe just falls on you. So it's not to say that paid is like the only way to go during the holidays. Like I said, you can just increase your strategy of posting. Say you've been posting 3 times a week and maybe you want to push to 5, for the Q4 and see if that helps you reach your goals. I think that's a very smart move to do. I don't think paid ads are for everybody. Like I said, Meta will take your money no matter what, but it's really up to you. Do you have a budget for your marketing to go into paid ads? And don't boost anything, dear God. Just don't hit the boost button. Run a real campaign.
So glad you said that, because it shakes me to my core every single time I see one of these coaches say just boost your post. I'm like, no, you can't target everybody. Like I'm not an expert at ads, but I just know for damn sure do not do that kind of stuff.
Please do not. I beg you, because boosting is, from what I've learned, boosting was like one of the first ways that you could, get that paid traffic with Facebook and Instagram. We've come so much farther than that. Why would you choose to go back to the days of like, oh, we just click this button and see what happens, when you can like strategically analyze your data and say, okay, I want to target people who have never known me. Like I want to make sure that I get my ads to them specifically, people who are interested in what I'm selling, maybe people who have been to my website before. Like you can be very specific in a Facebook campaign when you're running a real ad. But if you just boost, it's just like send my stuff out there. A friend of mine actually, she said it so perfectly. Boosting your content is like taking your flyer downtown and handing it to everybody you see. Why would you do that? That's a waste of paper. That's a waste of your time. That's a waste of your energy because half of those people, or more than half of those people, no idea who you are, don't care about your flyer, don't know why you gave it to them, might throw it in the trash as soon as you give it to them. Why are you throwing your money away? So I'm sorry, I'm very anti-boosting. I would never let a client boost an ad. And when they do it, I'm like, why didn't you ask me? Like, why did you do that?
And like you said, Meta is gonna take that money because I know they're sending those little notifications like, hey, like spend $40 to reach so many people. And I feel like people see those
Yes,
numbers, just reach 50,000 people. Oh, just for $50? Why not? And I'm like, just no.
because they do. Who are those people? Like, who are they?
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
just
then
not
all
the
of a
best
sudden
bet.
it's like, man, why do I have all these people from those third world countries that are not my target audience?
Oh my gosh, you have the people who are literally in the farms on phones just being bots. Don't risk it. Go to build a real strategy before you do something like that. Or just lay low, boost your organic, I mean not boost, excuse me, post your organic content and really see, what value you're putting out there for your audience. I think
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of people can learn from other content creators who, like, if you see them on your feed all the time, 9 times out of 10 is because you engage with their posts and they're posting like consistently. And consistently doesn't mean follow the trend. It means what's consistent for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is just interesting. I'm glad we agree on the whole boosted thing because it's just insanity. And like some of my friends, they still do that. I'm like, please, just I mean, like, pay me to post your content or something. Stop throwing money on Facebook. Like we
Yeah.
have plenty of money
Yeah.
already.
Like number one thing people will ask, one of the top things is like, oh, my organic post is doing so well. Should I boost it? No. Like red flag, red flag.
Yeah, you gotta do one of those TikToks or Instagram reels that red flag sound.
Yes. Can I boost my content? Ooh, 3 red flags. Don't do that.
Man, that's crazy. Okay, so I like to ask one question for everybody that I interview. So, if you were to get started all over again in your service business, knowing what you already know today, what would you do differently?
I honestly would stay consistent in building my business first, like my framework, what I really wanted to give value to for my clients. I would build for a longer period of time before I started taking on clients. And I know that you can do it, as you build, like you can take on clients and work with clients as you grow. But I think that there's really value in that sweet spot of like, I'm just manifesting on my business. I'm just making sure, I'm using the tools that I want to use. I'm making sure I have my emails built out. I'm making sure I have a place for people to go to, come on my website and learn how to work with me and learn why they should work with me. I feel like I did those steps kind of in a rush and I didn't take the time to really kind of like say read the fine print, like, oh, I built my website on a site that I wish I didn't build my original website on, so now I'm building a new one. Oh, my logo, like I just kind of went with one of the first people who said like, yeah, I can do this for you. And I'm like, now it doesn't really fit me. I want to do another one. And so I think I would have taken more time to read into building the business and laying the foundation for what I knew that it would grow to, before I just kind of put myself out there like, hey, I'll work with anybody, because that's honestly what I said. I was like, I'll work with any small business in the beginning. And I'm like, I had to learn the hard way that that's not the best approach for business, just working with, Jane at the flower shop and, Joe who's got, he's making pots and pans. Like you can't just be talking to those two people like and really deliver the same kind of value. When you niche down and you're really specific about who you want to work with, I think that gives you a higher elevation with your clients. Like, hey, yes, I can make social media content for everybody, but what I'm really good at is making it for this group of people. So kind of focusing on that. Those are a few things I learned, and I wish I had knew that in the beginning, but I'm still very new. As I mentioned, 2 years in, that's not a long time, and it's a good time to kind of restart.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like seeing you grow just like in the last couple of months that we've known each other, I'm like, I just know that you have so many amazing things in front of you. Having the structure and the system that you already have, I just know like every single time I would meet a health and wellness professional and they need social media, Danisha is your girl. For sure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And like I said, I love seeing your content. And I know that based on how you deliver content for yourself, your clients are getting top-notch services. We both looked at some systems I know we really enjoy, and just your foundation, and like map out of like, okay, this is how I like deliver my products to my clients, and like they get to approve it and look in the back end. Shout out to Airtable, because we love an Airtable base. They are amazing. So that's so good, that like I said, we've learned that about each other in just these few months of knowing each other. And it's just been eye-opening in the growth. Like, yes.
Absolutely. So, Danisha, how can people connect with you and how they can apply to work with you or buy any digital products that you are selling or planning to sell in the future? So, tell us more.
So the one thing that I would tell people to do is get on my email list. I am building an email list on workwithsts.com. So that is the first thing I think everyone needs to do. Get on my email list. As soon as you get on my email list, you're going to get a freebie, 5 things you need to know before you jump into paid Facebook ads. You absolutely need to just review this checklist. Don't go in that meta back in and think like you can just do it yourself if you don't know these 5 things first. So that's the freebie you're going to get when you get on my email list. I'm just so thankful that Jelena, you had me on here today. That's a true testament of, like I said, our experience knowing each other, our time together has just been, hey, you need something. Yeah. It's so easy to connect with you and work with you, even though we're in completely different time zones. We make it work. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate you. And yeah, definitely get on Danisha's email list and follow her on social media. I'll leave all your links down below in the description. And it's been my absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye.